Oh man, Christmas time in the 1970s. It was just different, as anyone who was lucky enough to experience it knows. It's hard to not look back and wonder if it was better before the days of iPads and smartphones. Most people tend to look back on the decade of their childhood as the most memorable one for Christmas. So perhaps I'm a little biased here, but these are the things that I enjoyed most about Christmas in the 1970s. For starters, Christmas seems to come so early today. As soon as Halloween is over, people start decorating for Christmas on November 1st. Here in America, they completely forget about Thanksgiving. It also seems like many people want to cover every square inch of their house in Christmas lights and then have some sort of light show set to music. Yes, those are very cool, but there is something very cheerful and happy about a single strand of lights on the roofline and a couple of blow molds out in the yard. For our family and everyone else around me, I never knew anyone to start decorating for Christmas until at least December 1st. One thing that we all enjoyed doing as a family was the Christmas tree. People today have one that gets put together in two pieces and all the lights are pre-wired into it. Not in the 70s though. Artificial trees took quite a bit of effort to put together. Each branch had to be placed into a slot on a wooden pole. Then the light strands would be added to the tree. They were multicolored light strands that had blinking lights, and they were pretty fancy with plastic on the side of the light bulbs that resembled stars or flowers. Usually, Mom and Dad would add the strand of lights to the tree while they were plugged in. Sometimes one light would go out, and that would cause the whole light strand to not work. Dad would then try to guess which light it was by pulling the light out and pressing a new one in its place. When you pushed on those lights, the plastic around the bulb would sometimes break, which could make Mom a little upset. She was all about having the perfect tree for Christmas time. Dad might go through the whole strand and then realize that it must be more than one bulb. This would stress both of them out, so then they would light up a cigarette to calm down. After they finished their cigarettes, Dad would get back at it, and somehow he always managed to get that light strand working. As kids, we got to add the garland, which was usually popcorn that we had popped and then placed each piece on a long string. We then added ornaments on the tree, and it was always a mix of everything. I never really saw a themed tree until the 1990s. Our tree in the 70s had ornaments that we had made at school or ornaments that Grandma or our aunt had made. But we also had the traditional fancy glass ornaments as well as the styrofoam balls that were covered in a layer of silky thread. They looked nice when they came out of the box, but they would somehow get snagged on the broken plastic lights or by tree branches. Then you would have to cut the snags or strings and spray the ornament with hairspray. No matter what you did, they seemed to get worse year after year. A lot of people had stars or angels on top of the tree, but we had a crocheted Santa that Mom had made. Our tree skirt was something else that Mom had sewn, and it coordinated with our family stockings. Lastly, the tree was covered in silvery tinsel, and I mean all over it. You could never have too much of it, right? At least that's what we kids thought. A lot of this tinsel ended up falling off of the tree and getting tangled into our shag carpet. Mom would try to rake and vacuum it up, but it would then get wrapped around the vacuum cleaner drum. That meant that Dad had to unravel it while the rest of us were picking it up out of the shag carpet. The Sears, JCPenney's, and Montgomery Ward catalogs were usually sent to us in the mail in early November. Our parents always told us to thumb through it and circle what we wanted. My brothers and I each had a different color, and we had no problem letting them know each and every item that we wanted. Those catalogs kept us busy for hours upon hours, and I think that's why our parents got them in the first place. We knew darn well that we would never even get a quarter of what we had circled. Regardless, we always went back over the catalog for the remainder of the Christmas season to make sure that we did not miss anything. The 1970s was sort of a transitional time with Christmas. Many people were flocking to indoor shopping malls because they were big and out of the weather. There seemed to be a store for everyone, and it was a one-stop shop all under one roof. The malls were always super festive, and if you wanted to see Santa, then you could do so and also have your picture taken with him. But this new shopping mall may have seemed great to us, but our parents preferred the downtown shopping experience. They always made it a point to take us there while they did a little bit of shopping. It was also super festive, and the window displays were unbelievable. They could make any toy in the window look super fun. But as the decade wore on, many of the stores began to close, and there was less and less people each year in the downtown area. In the 70s, it seemed like a lot more things were homemade. As I mentioned earlier, we made popcorn garland, but we also made a chain that was created out of red and green construction paper. As kids, we always took the time to make Christmas cards for our family and friends. Speaking of Christmas cards, do you remember how many of those you would get in the mail? We would take them and display them on our door or the wood paneling wall for all to see. I really haven't seen anything like it for decades. Mom usually spent a lot of time in the kitchen making all sorts of treats. Other than decorating the sugar cookies, we didn't have too much to do with the process of making them, but we sure did enjoy eating them. Another homemade decoration that we had was a ceramic Christmas tree that had all of the little colored plastic bulbs in it. That was something that Grandma had painted, and it seemed like every household had one. One essential item that you had to have during the Christmas season was the TV guide. We did not have cable TV in our area, and we certainly did not have a VCR. We all looked through the TV guide and planned out our viewing schedule. The cool thing about the 1970s is that everyone watched the Christmas specials at the exact same time. If you were not in front of the television when it came on, then you missed it. Our parents made sure that we caught our shows because they did not want to hear us talk about missing it for the next year. How the Grinch Stole Christmas and A Charlie Brown Christmas were certainly our favorites, but they were from the 1960s. However, the 1970s gave us some great classics to watch, such as the ones from Rankin Bass. We tuned into Santa Claus is Coming to Town and The Year Without Santa Claus each time it came on. Our parents had their own specials that they wanted to watch, and we may have watched a little, but for the most part, we did not. However, I do remember them watching the Waltons' Christmas specials as well as Bob Hope's Christmas specials. As I've grown up, I've watched way more of those than I did as a kid. Our parents usually spent a lot of time in the living room trying to relax as they played some Christmas music. I remember them listening to anything from Elvis, James Brown, to Feliz Navidad, but I also remember Mom when she whipped out the Carpenter's Christmas Portrait album. Well, there goes Dad. The light strand has went out on the tree, so he's over there with his cigarette and Crown Royal trying to shake the cord in hopes of getting it to work again. Meanwhile, we are adding stress to the situation. Here we were using our record player to play the Chipmunk song or A Grandmother Got Ran Over by a Reindeer over and over and over until both our parents begged us to turn it off. Our living room always had plenty to snack on during the Christmas season. Mom always had a bowl of Chex Mix that she whipped up with some pretzels and peanuts. She usually got mad when one of us would eat all of the peanuts out of it. I'm not saying who did it, but I did and still love peanuts. We also had the big bowl of mixed nuts in the living room. You know, the ones that you had to use all the different tools to crack each one open? It seemed like you burned up more calories getting to the nut than you actually did from consuming the nut. We were also known to have a big bowl of pistachios in the living room. Mom always knew that I was the one that ate all of those because the evidence was all over my fingers and lips. Remember the red dye on them? Occasionally, we would have something from Hickory Farms, which always seemed like a special treat, and it did not last long. Grandma's house always had the crystal candy dish that was filled with ribbon candy. You know, the kind that stuck together and when you picked one piece out of it, the whole clump of candy came out? When people chose not to eat it, she would just save it and bring it out the following year. One year I wanted to do something special for her and I saved up some money to buy some Christmas chocolates. Now I didn't have the money for premium Russell Stovers or Whitmans, but I did manage to get her something else. She was super happy to receive it and at the same time she looked a little hesitant. She picked out a piece of candy and then put it into her mouth. As I asked her if it was good, I heard some clicking and popping and then out came her teeth right on top of her lap. I had never seen her false teeth before and there they were with a piece of caramel candy stuck in between them. I immediately burst into laughter and thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I then glanced over at my mother who was standing behind her and she was giving me the mean mug while doing the neck slicing motion, telling me to cut it out. Turns out I was the only one that was laughing and the rest of the family did not find it funny at all. I found out later that my grandma hated caramel candy for that very reason. The upper brands of candy had a map on the inside of the box that would tell you which piece was what, and she accidentally picked the wrong piece from my box. Needless to say, I never gave her any more chocolates. I just let her stick with the ribbon candy. That fiasco may not have been a Kodak moment, but there was always plenty of picture taking. The Polaroid camera seemed to be the camera of choice, but there were also the pocket cameras that many celebrities advertised. I remember the flash cubes or the stacked flashes that would go off and leave spots in your eyes for 10 minutes or so. The great thing about Polaroids is how we could instantly see the results, or so we thought. The photos still took a few minutes to fully develop. It is certainly not like our smartphones today, which are truly instant. Christmas dinners with the family were always something that we dressed up for. No one was wearing pajama pants, sweatpants, or Crocs. We all sat at the table. Well, at least adults sat at the big table, and kids were at the little kids' card table. No one ever complained, and we all enjoyed it. As kids, we spent all of our free time looking all around the house for our gifts until we found them. Mom knew that we did this, so her solution was to bring them home and wrap them up right away. She thought that would work, but my brother accidentally ripped it open while he was shaking it and trying to guess what was inside. Or at least that's what he said. After that, Mom really piled on the Scotch tape on each and every present for us. But we adapted. I then took a razor blade to the tape and carefully cut it so I could see exactly what I got. I needed to know exactly what it was and whether or not I needed to leave little hints around the house. Mom figured out somehow that we had opened the presents after our horrible surprising acting job on Christmas morning. After that year, she put them in numerous boxes inside other boxes and would always duct tape the innermost box all the way around. We had to cut open boxes with scissors and it was never easy, so there never was any more peeking. Christmas parties at school were always a lot of fun. Everyone's mom made homemade candies and cookies for the whole class to enjoy. I never ran into one kid that had a peanut or gluten allergy, so we all enjoyed those delicious treats. Fast forward to when my kids were in school and they couldn't bring anything unless it was pre-packaged and peanut-free. How strange is that? Some of the gifts that we got excited over are ones that kids today would not care about. Between my brothers and I, we had things like the Evel Knievel stunt cycle, Stretch Armstrong, the $6 Million Man, Lego blocks, Star Wars figures, and Mego action figures. We were also fortunate enough to have some of the leading-edge electronics like the Pong video game system, Atari 2600, Coleco electronic football, and Little Professor. But this was also a time period when we got excited over board games, and we had quite the collection of those. My kids, and even those that are younger, don't seem to have the same love for board games. One of the best gifts that I ever received for Christmas was a bicycle. That was the kind of gift that would take you places and give you a new sense of freedom. Our parents always worked super hard to make Christmas incredible for each and every one of us. My kids think that it looks super strange and boring, but it was pretty special to us. This was not just a house with orange shag carpet, linoleum flooring, wood paneling, a harvest gold chair, and gaudy wallpaper. It was a home when Christmas was magical and we all played our part in making it happen. Today, we seem to stress out over buying things rather than making things. And the important thing is to make memories because those are the gifts that last a lifetime. What are some of your favorite Christmas memories that you had as a child? I would love to hear more in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.